Recall that earlier generations faced down fascism and communism not just with missiles and tanks, but with the sturdy alliances and enduring convictions. They understood that our power alone cannot protect us, nor does it entitle us to do as we please. I face the world as it is, and cannot stand idle in the face of threats to the American people. For make no mistake, evil does exist in the world. A nonviolent movement could not have halted Hitler's armies. Negotiations cannot convince al-Qaeda's leaders to lay down their arms. To say that force may sometimes be necessary is not a call to cynicism, it is a recognition of history.
So could you interpret that as evolving worldview from President Obama, from the inauguration to the present? Let's discuss the tone of the Obama foreign policy and how it may have been changed over the past year. Back with the panel, Steve.
Well, it was a very interesting speech in that it struck a stronger tone. The Nobel Peace Prize speech seems to accept the strength of the United States in a way that I thought his inaugural speech really didn't, or at least did very uncomfortably. There's a popular bumper sticker, increasingly popular bumper sticker on cars these days, wag more, bark less. And I think if you were going to summarize Obama administration foreign policy over the first year, that's it. And it might be a cute bumper sticker for dog lovers, but it's not a particularly effective foreign policy. The question will be, and Mara alluded to this earlier, how does he pivot from that? He has outstretched his hand. He has made overtures again and again and again, both to would-be allies and to our enemies in some cases. How does he change that posture, which I think hasn't been effective, and accept that he's going to have to govern as the leader of the free world, which is something he's shown reluctance and in some cases said that he was reluctant to do?
I think he already pivoted. He gave that speech because of the policy that he just enacted. In other words, he didn't just go there to give a speech. He committed 30,000 troops to Afghanistan, and then he went to pick up the Nobel Peace Prize.
Speech,
and I think when you look at the
that's
face,
the criticism.
when you
that
look
it's a speech versus his actions through the year.
Well, no, he chose a path in Afghanistan. He settled a dispute between no escalation and escalation. And when you looked at the face of that Norwegian, the guy sitting next to him, that was not the speech they were expecting when they gave him the Peace Prize. He was given the Peace Prize for engagement, not being George Bush, and there he goes to say evil does exist in the world. Sometimes nations have to act alone. He saluted Martin Luther King and Gandhi, but he said, I cannot be guided by their example alone. Sometimes the use of force is morally justified. I mean, yes, this is a president who's, I think, worldview and whose foreign policy, not just his tone, but his actual policy has evolved and changed. He is now a war president. I think he went to Oslo fully embracing that role, and I think this was a huge turning point for him.
I was less impressed by the dawn of this new realism. What the president stood up and said was, there's evil in the world, and the Gandhi would not have done well against Hitler. Well, for most of us, you dispose of those issues in the first week in the freshman dorm in college, after a couple of late-night discussions. And to elevate it as as a great philosophical achievement for him to say that is quite astonishing. It's emperor's new clothes. It's obvious. The fact that we were all impressed is to tell you how unrealistic, idealistic, and naive were all the previous speeches, starting with the speech he gave in '08 in Berlin, in which he said that the wall had come down in Berlin because the world stood as one. Well, that's not why the wall had come down. It came down because America stood fast for 50 years on the ramparts of freedom and didn't flinch, and in the end the other guy conceded and collapsed. So this kind of globalism, this universalism, this naivete runs through all of his policy. Mara is right on the one issue of Afghanistan where he had to make a decision. He is a commander-in-chief, and he's going into war. Of course you have to admit there's evil in the world, otherwise why are you going to war? But in all the other approaches, all the globalism, the outreach, the outstretched hand, he's acting again and again in a way in which he's being rejected and rebuffed, and at some point he's going to have to respond to empirical evidence and change, but he hasn't yet. That one speech in Oslo is not a change.
General, what about the president's relationship with the military, his tone he takes with the military.
Yeah, I'm really tired of all the inside the Beltway op-eds and so forth about this friction between the president and the military. 2 points. First of all, he's got probably the best uniformed leadership that we've had in this country since the Second World War. I mean, between Admiral Mullen, Dave Petraeus, and Stan McChrystal, these are hardened, wise, well-educated combat veterans. So he needs to listen to his generals. The other thing, particularly on Christmas Day, I'd suggest, is that the administration also needs to listen to their soldiers. Remember now, we have soldiers who are going over to Afghanistan, which is a theater of war that's probably twice as difficult as Iraq. Many of them going on their 5th and 6th time, for some special forces units going over in double digits. So if you're going to keep a pulse on the military, this administration has got to pay very close attention to the most precious commodity they have, and that's the young men and women in harm's way.
Steve, do you think the change will continue? Do you think the Nobel Peace Prize speech will be the lead-in to 2010 and how he addresses these issues, foreign policy?
I would say I'm skeptical. I think that, you know, he has a certain worldview. He has a certain outlook. We've seen him articulate this at his news conference in Port of Spain when he was asked directly about the Obama doctrine. He said that we gain moral authority by admitting our mistakes. And he talked about the world as a series of basically equal countries. That's not someone who seems entirely comfortable or seems to embrace the role of America traditionally. I mean, American exceptionalism.
Bottom line, he's reading all the intelligence reports and he gets briefed every day, so that's an eye-opener no matter what.
Yeah, and he did talk, he sounded like an exceptionalist at West Point and in Oslo. He might have not have sounded like one before, but he did sound like one in those speeches.
Coming up next, the pain of separation and the joy of coming back together during the holidays. We will look at how military families hang tough.
Hi, I'm Steve Cusack from the Air Cavalry Brigade in Camp Taji, Iraq. I wanted to say Merry Christmas to Miss Ingram's preschool class in Blacksburg, Virginia. Thank you for the artwork and keep up the good work. Special hello to my son Ben and my niece Ellie. Merry Christmas.